everybody. How are you? How are you? Welcome in. Wow. I'm super excited to be here, and I am just so floored by all of the amazing sessions yesterday and today. So I'm like, if you're excited, let me see it in the chat. I love, oh, all right. Yay. Hi, Brittany, Wendy. Always, hi, Erica. Always love doing these sessions because I can see friends. All right. Awesome. Anthony Birch, nice to see you. Okay. I'm like, I always go too fast or too slow, and I always get a little virtual stage fright. So it always helps me when I tell people that. So I'm just going to take a beat and we're going to get started. So thank you so much for joining this session today. It's standardizing processes across your firm. If we don't know each other, my name is Justine Lackey, and I am the founder of a firm called Good Sense Management, and I am the leader and coach in my program, the Incubator. So I am so happy to meet you. If we haven't met already, I wanted to share a little bit about myself and why I am here teaching this particular training today. So Good Sense Management was actually one of the first virtual bookkeeping companies in North America. I started doing virtual bookkeeping using zip drives with messengers and FedEx. So this girl, she goes back a while. I built that firm over 15 years, and then I sold and exited in February of 2023 to my dream buyer. I was actually on a panel this summer with Kenji, our keynote speaker yesterday, talking about that process. Always happy to share if that's you, if you're getting ready to sell. I am proud to say I am a multiple gold medalist in failure. So over those 15 years, I failed hard and a lot, and it was really painful at times. But now that I'm on the other side of that, I see it was actually truly a gift because I get to share every way that I failed with all of you wonderful accounting and bookkeeping firm owners so that you can learn from my mistakes. My father says that every person's life is to serve, like the purpose of every person's life is to serve as a lesson to others. And I certainly feel like you can take lessons from mine. I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a book lover, and I am told I am one excellent cook. It is one of my favorite things to do is to feed people. And like I said, I am the leader of the Incubator. So welcome. Okay. My promise to you for this session is by the end of it, you're going to have a clear roadmap to build and implement and maintain standardized processes in your firm. So I just want, just want to check. I see a little notification here. Okay. Ooh, sorry. You're going to have a clear roadmap to build and implement and maintain standardized processes in your firm. So the way that I teach is really step by step. It's how I teach in my program or when I have the luxury and privilege of teaching in places like or for events like WorkflowCon is by the end of this session, you're going to learn how to build an SOP. I know that sounds pedestrian, but because we talk about them all the time, but I sometimes think there's knowledge gaps there. How to revise and refine your SOPs consistently, and then how to implement process habits, because you can build an SOP all you want, but unless you actually use it, you might as well not bother. So we're going to do all this so you can stop reinventing the wheel or spinning them. I mean, I definitely was spinning my wheels a lot in my firm. Scale your firm sustainably. And that means if you're a solopreneur or if you have a multiple team firm like I did, I teach a lot about the right size business. Sometimes solopreneurs are now referred to as lifestyle firms, but I think that these lessons relate to whatever size you are. And sustainability is important. It really is. And then learn how to lead yourself if you're a solopreneur, but also leading yourself and your team into adopting these practices because you can't scale chaos, right? If you remember, I said I was a multiple gold medalist in failure, and really what happened is I just got to a breaking point. I had a team, but like, we had issues with client satisfaction, and I was just in the weeds all the time. My stress level was super high, and I wasn't a good partner. I wasn't the best parent always. I think overall I did okay, but there was moments where I was like, that's really not who I want to be. And it wasn't like there was, everybody always talks about the aha moment. Like, I didn't have that aha moment. What I had was this cumulative acceleration, like, into further and further chaos. Because the thing is that the SOPs you build for your firm today probably will not be the SOPs that you're using in 3 or 5 years if your firm changes in any substantial way. For sure, SOPs relating to software will change because the software will change. But I just got really tired. And then I did a lot of systematic things to get over that chaos. One of them was I went into a 2-year deep coaching experience with my mentor. And then I actually hired an EOS implementer in Good Sense, probably 3 years before I sold. And really dialed in this process, and then things weren't so chaotic anymore. What I do want to share before we get started is, SOPs are not one and done. So I think that there's a misconception in our culture or in our industry, like, oh, build your SOPs, build your SOPs. It's not like you build them today and then you're done with them. They are a living, breathing experience, document, process. You have to build them, then you have to revise them. Sometimes you're going to can them all together. You're going to hear me say that a lot in this presentation, because it's important that we start to change the narrative that they're fixed, because most people don't understand it. I'm just going to say that I'm not going to look at the chat until the end, just so that I can stay. I'm like a little squirrel. I'll see that chat and I'll run over there. So if you're dropping questions, I'll come back to them. I just want to make sure that I get everything covered in the presentation. So in fact, I'm covering that chat window completely so I don't get sidetracked. So here we go. Learning objective number 1, which is how to build an SOP. So actually, I am going to take a pause and look at the chat. Who here has built one or more SOPs in their business? Drop a 1 in the chat if that's you. Who here has built one or more SOPs in your business? Me. Hi, Christy. Good to see you. Yeah. Okay. I know Erica for sure. Okay. Who here has built an SOP and then never looked at it again? Put a 2 in the chat if you build an SOP and then like never ever looked at it again. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then the last question is, who here feels stuck or that they should be further along with building their systems or their SOPs? Put a 3 in the chat. Put a 3 if you feel stuck or behind. Stuck or behind. Okay, the purpose of that question is I want you to understand everybody feels like that. And you can see the evidence here that your peers feel like that. And it's because, like I said, it's a never-ending process. So even though you feel like that, it's probably never going to go away, but you're going to give it your best shot, and you're going to learn some things today that'll help you get over that feeling. Here is why you are stuck or behind. And I want to say, since 2022, I have taught hundreds of bookkeepers. I'm not going to say thousands because that would be an over exaggeration. I've taught hundreds of bookkeepers and accountants about all these processes, systems, etc. So, and I am like a data fiend. So I collect data like a crazy person, which is kind of evidenced by that chat. But these are the most common reasons I see with my students and my clients about why they're stuck or behind. They overcomplicate. This was also me too, so I relate to this very well. I was overcomplicating everything, right? You just like, you're like, you want to build all the things. This is a huge one. And I asked this in question number 2, is you create these processes, these SOPs, these templates, and then you don't use them. Often because you can't find them. So that's actually the very first lesson I teach in the Incubator program, is how to build a library to find all your SOPs. You are constantly putting your clients first, or your family. That one gets a pass, but you're constantly putting your clients first. So you come down, you land in your seat, you attend WorkflowCon, you've got every intention to dive in tomorrow and do all the things, and then boom, that inbox is on fire, right? And we're in the business of customer service. The thing is that you can't get ahead if you are constantly putting your clients first. It's cliche, and it is cliche for a reason. You have to carve out the time to do this work. Now, this is the last one, and this one is a stinger. I'm going to take a little sip of water. We often spend more time thinking about what we should do than actually doing it. So we spend more time thinking about what we should do than actually doing it. A really great example of this, and I'm sure many of you guys can relate to this, is you have a sticky accounting problem. It's like a payroll that went sideways in QuickBooks and you got to untangle it. Or, you're going through, like, you're cleaning up accounts receivable for a client and you just think about this problem, but you don't want to do it. Has anybody ever done that? Procrastination? Anybody? Yes. Okay. That's the same thing happens with building out these systems in our businesses. We think about more about them than we spend more time doing that than we do actually doing the work. So, I call this conception to execution. So we conceive all the time. I got to build an SOP. I have to have an onboarding process. I got to do this. I got to do that. But execution is over here. And there's a big gap between conception and execution. And I just reread Atomic Habits for the second time. I finished it in October. And it was really fascinating to reread it. But there's a reason why that happens. It's because we're naturally lazy, because our brains are designed to conserve energy. So when we have to do things that are new versus habitualized, it uses more energy. So they talk about motion versus action, and I'll get into that a little bit further in the presentation. So I want to give you the 4S framework. So this is a framework that I designed and I figured out after 15 years of failing and running this business, because everything inside a bookkeeper or accounting firm, and I would argue a service-based business, all of your SOPs and processes fall into these categories: sales, systems, skills, and service. So you will have SOPs for sales, right? Your sales call consult, your sales email template follow-up, your engagement letter, right? You will have SOPs for service, monthly workflows. That's where Financial Sense comes in, right? Weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly workflows. You'll have those as SOPs or templates. You'll have system SOPs and templates. When you start to build a firm, I'll tell you something. Kenji talked about like the leaky bucket yesterday. You have to really manage your seats very tightly, because if you onboard and offboard contractors or employees, that's a system, and you have to make sure that you have an SOP for that, because otherwise you will give thousands of dollars away to SaaS companies, and we already are paying too many fees, right? And then skill acquisition also has SOPs. How are we actually going to relate the internal skills that we have over to our employees or contractors, but also how are we going to get that information over from our clients? That's what I call information transference. Okay, so listen, I know that a lot of you guys said you are behind. Just move, just make progress, right? It is about progress, not perfection. So I want you to leave here and feel like you can take some action, right? So we stop thinking and we get to that execution phase. Start by documenting what you're already doing and don't overcomplicate it. You guys have it so good, man. You have Loom, you've got Zoom, you've got Avocor to translate your accounting meetings. I had Word and screenshots, and Word has been a hot mess since like 1990, and it never got any better. It's still buggy. So there's a great app. It's an extension you can plug into Chrome. I think it's called Go Tango or Get Tango, and it'll follow you around. Take screenshots and transcribe what people should be doing. So it's don't overcomplicate it, just go. Now create a company library that captures the processes you already have. In that chat, so many of you already said, I created SOPs and never looked at them again. A really great action step for you to take tomorrow or a Monday or a quiet hour over the weekends. I know that's heresy. I actually like working a little bit on the weekends because it's really focused. But gather the SOPs you already have. You might be surprised you're actually much further ahead than you actually think, right? Get specific, all right? Tackle one major SOP per month if you're on your own. If you have a team, each person can tackle an SOP. I want you to know, though, I'm being very gracious here, assuming that you can only do one per month. And I mean one, like full stop, beginning to end. Tighter timelines equal more progress. So I can't remember. Somebody's going to put it in the chat. There's that law that work expands into the time that you give it. So if you say, okay, I'm gonna make my onboarding SOP. Like when? So you have to get decisive and get specific. And then a pro tip for this is don't go at it alone, right? Delegate documentation to your team as a way to build in buy-in and ownership. I know some people really, managing a team can be a challenge. When you start to invite people into the process, that's when I really started to develop deep and meaningful relationships with my team. And I had an awesome team. Like, I cried hysterically when I had to tell them that I sold the company. I am still really good friends with them. I still got birthday messages last month from them. It was one of the reasons why my firm was very valuable when I sold it, is because the retention level that I had for both my clients and my team was high because I invited them into the process. One of the things that I teach my students and my clients is, boss is boss, leaders lead. And there is a difference. And everybody in this virtual room has had a boss, and everybody, I hope, has actually had the opportunity to work with a leader, because it's a very different experience. And if you're solo, find a buddy. There are so many amazing communities out there. I have a community. There's GoCast, there's Realize, there's ask a CPA. There's just so many great places out there to meet people, and you can work together, because then you have that accountability component, right? I want to give you examples of SOPs, so that we're not living in the land of, we're not living in la la lands. But here are some examples of SOPs. Here, if you have not used Financial Sense, they're just an incredible company. I love working with them. But you can open their software, and they have a whole library of SOPs for you to choose from, customize, create. I mean, they have done so much to support us as a community, as accountants and bookkeepers. So the wonderful thing is that if you haven't built anything, you got a wonderful springboard with Financial Sense. So examples: onboarding, offboarding, email templates, right? For that sales process, for follow-ups, for tax time. I just did a tax time training. It was 2 hours long in my community about all the different emails and things that you have to send around tax time. Your sales process from beginning to end. HR is hiring, training, and retaining. There is a ton of SOPs related to HR. And then for the actual client services component, our deliverables, we're all here to deliver one thing, which is clear and accurate financials, whether it's on the bookkeeping side or the tax side. So we have weekly SOPs if we're a full service CAS firm, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. These are all workflows. One thing that comes up when I teach is people don't understand that SOPs can come in different formats. The most common is a checklist, right? You get on a flight and your pilot has a checklist, and they're going through that checklist, and it's a punch list. Boom, 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 boom. An SOP can also be a dashboard, right? So yesterday, Kenji talked about tracking churn. I have a dashboard that I built where we tracked sales calls, close rates, churn rates for employees, like, right, your employee churn rate, then you have your client churn rate. That is an SOP. That's a process. Email templates, they come scripts. Sorry, I'm talking so fast. I'm getting froggy. Scripts. You should have a script when you get on that discovery call, and you should have a script when you get on that onboarding call. It's not just a checklist, it's a checklist ends. So there are lots of different styles of SOPs. So that's important to understand, because we don't talk about, okay, well, what is an SOP? It's a standard operating procedure, but what does it look like from the documentation perspective? As my Italians in Jersey would say, gabish, understands? Okay. The next thing that comes up is overwhelm, right? Where do I start? Like, Justine, I don't even know where to start. Does anybody know where to start? If you don't know where to start, put a 1 in the chat. Or you feel overwhelmed about starting, put a 1 in the chat. 1, 1, 1. Overwhelmed, don't know where to start. Overwhelmed, don't know where to start. Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, cool. All right. Here we go. Look again. Does that slide look familiar? Onboarding, offboarding, email templates, sales processes, HR, which is a beast. It was the last thing I nailed in good sense, and it's huge. And those weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly workflows. So just choose one. And then get some momentum. I actually went up and I was like, what's the root word of momentum? Remember, I'm a reader, so I also do weird things like look up the root words of words, and it's mover, right? And it means to move. Just get some momentum. When my students come to me and they say, I don't know where to start, I share one thing with them, and it is choose where you or your clients have the most pain. So if your onboarding process stinks, you got to fix it, because that's your first impression. You know, if you are missing deadlines and deliverables and your clients are angry, you got to lock in those workflows, your client monthly, weekly, whatever workflow, so that you are delivering on your promises. So start with the one SOP that is causing you the most pain or stress. I got to speed it up because I only got 25 more minutes and I want time for questions. Okay, learning objective number 2, how to revise and refine SOPs. The only thing worse than no process is an outdated one. So remember, we talked that SOPs are dynamic, they're living, they're breathing. So then we have to figure out how to revise and refine them. I said it before, I will say it again. This is not a one-time event. SOPs must be part of your company culture. You know, you have to train every new hire on those SOPs. That is actually how you institute SOPs as part of your company culture. Because if you set the expectation from the beginning that we are a firm and a company that lives or dies by our SOPs, as you onboard an employee or a contractor, you've now folded it into the company culture. You have to create that rhythm for using SOPs in real time. And the only way that you can do that is if you can find them, because if you can't find them, you can't use them. So how do we revise and refine? The best possible way to revise and refine your SOP is in real time. So if you had a sales call that went sideways, right? You forgot to ask a question, you know, during a sales call, for example, you know, let's say you get off the call and you realize that you didn't ask about payroll. Well, payroll is not just one question. It's, do you have people on payroll? How often are you running payroll? How many employees are on payroll? What's your payroll company? These are all things that should be in that sales call questionnaire. And if they're not there, you want to update that right after that sales call, or right when you notice that is missing, because you will forget. You will land in your seat. You will get sucked in by a client fire. You will get things happen at school, sick days, but you'll forget. So update them in real time. So same thing with the onboarding. Onboarding call went sideways, update that SOP. Some major HR law changes in your state or a state where you have an employee, update that handbook, update the documents in your payroll company. These are what they call habit triggers, and you have to build them into your day, right? So when a certain event happens, you want your brain to be on autopilot to say, oh, wait, I have to update the SOP. In terms of best practices, you need this review rhythm. So even if you are updating the SOP in real time, you should be looking at your SOPs quarterly, definitely every 6 months. Quarterly might be overkill. It just depends on how big the firm is, but you have to put it on the calendar, and it is a non-negotiable appointment, right? It's like your annual doctor visit. You are not going to miss that visit. I just want to pause and make sure that my co-host hasn't. Okay. Wanted to check in on my Financial Sense co-host, Cairo. So make sure he didn't send me any messages, but okay. Documents need to be owned by someone, right? So Tosin owns our sales process, and Davida owns our client workflows, and Justine owns the HR documents. Remember, we were talking about buy-in and ownership from the team. Get them to own documents. Now, here's a pro tip that I learned, and I actually took it as a cue from Montessori. So if you guys aren't familiar with Montessori, it's a specific method for teaching children. And kind of the premise of Maria Montessori's methods was children gravitate towards what they're good at, right? So, and they have all different sorts of learning tools in the classroom. So I took that approach with my team, not to trivialize them or like treat them like kids. I was like, well, I'm just going to ask, like, what do you want to update? Because some people were more interested in the HR component and some were more interested in the software platform component. And when people volunteer for stuff, they're generally going to respond better than like, you've got to do this. So make sure you invite your team to say which ones that, now sometimes you have to make an executive decision, be like, okay, nobody wants to do this one, so we're going to pick straws. But generally speaking, I that approach really worked for me. Invite your team to flag outdated steps. Remember, we're creating a culture around SOPs, but we're also creating a culture of collaboration. You get that buy-in by having collaborations and conversations. I would keep an SOP suggestion box if you use Slack. I love those pins. If not, make sure you just have a Google Doc, right? So people can put suggestions there. And one of the greatest ways you can encourage team involvement is reward people for taking action. People like to be acknowledged for good work. They like to be appreciated. Everybody likes a good GC, a good gift certificate, especially if it's to a place that they really like. So these are all things that are important. Now, I know my solopreneurs out there are saying, but it's just me. I get it. It was just me too before I grew my team. Your SOPs need that rhythm. You still need to put it on your calendar, but just start with the SOPs you use most, which probably are sales, onboarding, and delivering outstanding work. Have one place that you jot down notes if it's on your phone, your note app. But again, leaning into that accountability, finding another small business owner, joining those Facebook groups, going to business conferences, finding somebody here at WorkflowCon. There's opportunities to go to our the sponsor booths and hang out. Like, really, really great. Search WorkflowCon 2025 on LinkedIn and find your people. Like, there's a lot of ways to connect with others. Okay, here's your bonus mindset shift. And I'm like so all about the mindset because there's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And I actually changed from being a fixed mindset, somebody who's stubborn and like not open to change, to a growth mindset, which is like somebody who really actively seeks it. I was somebody who thought that that rules cramped my style, right? So you can get that I'm an extrovert. I'm a little bit of a renegade. I'm a little bit of a rule breaker. And so I used to think like rules and SOPs and company mission statements and all of that stuff cramped my style. It mindset shift. It doesn't cramp your style. I thought, oh, I'm free. I'm a rule breaker. SOPs and standardizing your processes gives you freedom. It gives you freedom. What I learned is that rules and processes actually creates freedom because it creates more time. It creates more time and it creates calm. And it creates ultimately more profitability if you are leaning in and using these things. It's so important. So if you're like, oh, no, I'm just going to fly by the seat of my pants, don't do that. It's like bad plan, gold medalist here and failure. That is not the way. Okay, learning objective number 3. You must build habits. It is not enough to write down these SOPs. You have to make them muscle memory. So I got so good at my sales call. I didn't even need to look at my SOPs. Like even to this day, I could probably rattle off every single sales call question in my head. And I haven't had a bookkeeping sales call in over 3 years. But that wasn't something I learned over a day. It was something that, I built it one sales call at a time. Now that's really hard if you only have a sales call a month. It's hard to build that habit. So once you build that SOP, you have to be able to find it, read it before you get on that sales call, use it during that sales call, and then revise it after that sales call. If you go to a sales training, incorporate that learning into that SOP. So it's really all about habit building and committing it to muscle memory because, honey, your SOP is useless unless you use it. Like you're going to be creating busy work for yourself. You have to use it. So build those process habits. It can be a challenge. Like I said, we know that our brains want to do what is easy. That's why we have to force ourselves to adopt new habits. But eventually, like I said with my sales calls process, that new habit will become old hat. And it feels so good. It feels so good when you're like, damn, I nailed that sales call or I nailed that onboarding call. It feels great. So going back to Atomic Habits and which I know that there was a question in the chat. It's Atomic Habits. It's been a New York Times bestseller for years. It's written by a man named James Clear. He talked about the 4 steps of habit building, and I wanted to bring this into this presentation to talk about the SOPs, right? Because it is habit building. And James says there's 4 steps to building those habits. 1 is the cue, which is make it obvious. 2 is craving, which is make it attractive. 3 is response, which is make it easy. And 4 is reward, which is make it satisfying. I just talked about that when you're like, yes, I nailed it. Okay, step 1, cue, make it obvious. This is a screenshot from my bookmarks bar. Clearly, I love Peloton. If you're on Peloton, follow me there. You have to make those SOPs obvious. So you see that says JLM Team Library. My team now can click on that. It's a shared document. It used to say GCM, Good Sense Management Team Library. That is our SOP library. You click it, and it's a whole list of every single SOP we've ever created. Now, this is rule number 1. Cue, make it obvious. Can't find your SOPs? Boom. You have it in your bookmarks bar. Step 2, craving, make it attractive. I was like, how can I relate this to bookkeeping or accounting? Like making habits attractive? It's really simple. Like when you do a good job, you feel good, right? Like that is attractive. It feeds our positive feedback loops in our brain. And when you do a bad job, it doesn't feel good. So when you are constantly delighting your clients and creating that wow experience, because you and your team are doing an outstanding job, it feels fantastic. And I know that because I lived it, and I also know what it's like when you miss the mark, and it does not feel good. Step 3, make it easy. Response, make it easy. So less is more. You don't need 9,000 templates. You don't. The reason is because overly complicated SOPs decrease adoption. So that's what we call friction. We have that, we experience that a lot in software, is when something is overly complicated, we don't want to adopt it. So make it easy, make these SOPs really small, tight, to the point. Make it easy, create the library. Make it easy, set up the templates. Make it easy, saved all those email templates. In Gmail, they used to call them canned responses. Now I think they call them templates. You click the send button, you open it up, boom, you can drop here's how to book on my calendar. Here's how to update this. Here's how to access your client portal. How many emails have you written that have more or less said the same thing? And how much time would you save if you had all of these templates, which are an SOP saved? Hours, freedom. Go play pickleball. Do something awesome with those new hours. I don't play pickleball, but I'm kind of obsessed with it. So if we ever meet in person, please invite me. Step 4, reward, make it satisfying. When you get on those team calls and somebody actually took initiative, it is to me, it is your responsibility as a leader to acknowledge them publicly. Megan, you did such a great job. And I really want to say that I was not expecting you to go out above and beyond and not only figure out that this SOP was outdated, but that we had a better way to do it. Really, thank you. Here's your $30 gift certificate to, I don't know, Dunkin' Donuts. So reward that compliance and that contribution. For you as a business owner, one of the things that I would say is save love letters from your clients. Like when your client writes to you and says, I just want to say this was the easiest tax time I ever had. I really appreciate all the work that you and your team did. Thankfully, I get love letters from people that I've worked with, and sometimes people who just attend trainings like this and say, you know what, you really made a difference for me today. Thank you. And I have a little tag in Gmail that says love letters, and I can go back and reread them. So make it satisfying that your good work actually is impacting others. And then writing down those weekly wins. One of the things that changed my life was I started using a planner system called the Full Focus Planner. It's developed by my mentor, Michael Hyatt. And that is one of the things that we do every week. You have to reinforce what is going well. We so often focus on what is going sideways. So building these process habits is a process. I want you to go easy on yourself, but I also want to stick to your guns. That's how we grow, is on Peloton, one of my instructors says, you didn't show up here for it to be easy. You showed up here for change. And that's why you showed up to WorkflowCon. It's not because it's easy. It's because you want change. So know that it's a process. Know that it takes time. Don't beat yourself up about it, but stretch yourself. There's a certain amount of developmental maturity that comes with this work. And I'm not talking about emotional maturity versus emotional immaturity. I'm talking about business maturity, right? Systems maturity. And so you can accelerate that timeline by instituting what I am sharing with you today. We're about to wrap up. I'm going to go to questions. I just want to say one thing, because I didn't have a chance to add this to the slides, because I'm sure most people in this room, I've been developing custom GPTs and I've been playing with AI for a long time now. You can really harness ChatGPT and create a systems library in ChatGPT. You really have to start with analog material. And I know that a digital Google Doc is not an analog material, but ChatGPT also has something called company knowledge now, where you can connect ChatGPT to outside apps like your Slack channel and HubSpot and Google Drive. I'm not there yet personally. just for security reasons. I'd rather create a custom GPT, upload my SOPs, and then have my team members be able to query it. So that's the really cool thing about creating a custom GPT with all of your SOPs in it, is you can tell your team, like, oh, well, just go ask the company coach, how do I onboard payroll for Gusto, and it'll spit it back. So don't have time to cover that today, but I did want to address it because I know it's a conversation that we're having as a community. So I'm so glad that you were here today. If you want another training like this and you're ready to make 2026 your most powerful year yet, please join me for Velocity. Listen, I don't want to toot my own horn, but it really is the best strategic planning retreat for bookkeepers and accountants. It's on December 11th. I'm hosting it. It's a half-day virtual retreat. I think probably some members of my community are here. I hope they are. If you've gone through Velocity and you love it, I'd love to hear about that in the chat. And we can connect on LinkedIn. You can find me, Justine Lackey. I don't have that here. There's a workbook. I'm glad I have my notes here. See, there is a workbook for you to download to actually start to implement this stuff. So that's available for you. And also, if you'll go on my LinkedIn post, I am working with 2 firm owners next year in 2026 in my brand new co-leader program, where I'll actually come into your firm and help you build out this stuff. So if you're interested in that, go and read that post on LinkedIn, and you can reach out to me there. I just want to say thank you to Financial Sense. I mean, I'm like, high 10, high 5, guys, you just rock it. And I'm so grateful to be able to come and speak here. And I'm so grateful, like, you guys you do the best stuff for our community. So I am super, super thankful for you all. Tosin, Davida, Sharam, George, Cairo, who I just met today. You're all so great. So that's what I got. I think, let me go over to our Q&A. Oh, there's a lot of them. Okay. What's the difference between workflows and SOPs? Is a workflow the tool and the SOP of the process? I think they are interchangeable terms. Maybe somebody from Financial Sense would chime in here. One thing I would say is, in my head, I think of a workflow as a process map. I would invite you to Google a process map for maybe a sales process. And the process map actually outlines all the different steps, and it gives you an aerial view, whereas an SOP would be a checklist to implement that workflow. So I do think that they're interchangeable. Chris, how detailed do you get with an SOP? For example, do you list, reconcile bank statements as a high-level concept? I think it's Chris, but it says CHIRS. Okay, so I love this. So there are 4 steps. There are only 4 steps to bookkeeping. And I teach this in my program. Collect the information, enter the information, reconcile the information, revise the information. Every single account that should have those 4 steps. So if you set up Financial Sense for Tony's Ice Cream, and Tony has 3 different bank and credit card accounts, you're going to have 12 steps. Because if you don't have those 12 steps, you don't know if you actually did it. So for that stuff, for bookkeeping, highly nuanced. Now, if I'm like going all into the back end of Stripe and pulling something, I would just record a loom for that, because Stripe is going to change. How do you resist the urge to always put the client first and prioritize your own group while keeping your clients happy? Kaylee, so I like the word that you said, the word urge, right? It's people pleasing, and you cannot grow if you always put yourself first. Now, here's a really great way to keep your clients happy, which is, first, I focus a lot when I teach people on client education. So from the very beginning, from that sales call, is my team works Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We try our best to answer questions within 24 to 48 hours. So I've already set up the expectation that could take us 24 to 48 hours. Now, we're always going to try to answer faster, but now I've set up the expectation. We don't work on weekends, right? Now, what I would say is, in terms of keeping that client happy, Manners matter. So something comes into your inbox. I need a P&L for this. And it's just, hey, Tony from Tony's Ice Cream, I received your email. I just want to let you know this is the key. You're a priority for me, and I will get this over to you tomorrow. So now you've acknowledged his email. So he's not wondering if you got it. And you're making a promise to him. And then you're going to deliver on that promise. That's 5-star customer service. That is the whole premise of my program. And really important, really important. Yes, I see. Thank you. I see we have 5 minutes. Carrie, how much space do you have for the emotions of sacred cows that need to be sacrificed into streamlined ops? I don't really know if I can answer that question. Maybe you could elaborate on a little bit, like on sacred cows. I'm not tracking on that one. How much space do you hold for the emotion? Yeah. Okay. Is there a way to help visionaries simplify the processes? If it's a oh, hey Shannon. The best way is to have a great integrator. Those are the people that filter the visionaries. More come up with like great ideas, like I'm gonna like go build a payroll app, right? Because you're the payroll queen. That's the job of the integrator, is to filter the visionary so that we can stay focused on the primary deliverables of the company and adhere to the vision of the company. So I would just say really working with an integrator, or developing your own filtering mechanisms for making sure that you're simplifying the process. I have built a co-leader in ChatGPT where I use it as a strategic partner to help me filter those processes out. So yeah, visionary, it's a blessing and a curse. Are these SOP templates available if not part of FC? I am not sure. I am sure one of the support team members can help you. I do know this. Financial Sense has a ton of free training, so I would start there. But I would definitely, you could reach out to them on LinkedIn, or maybe Cairo could answer that question. So, but they also have a whole bunch of specials going on right now during WorkflowCon. So I don't know exactly what those are, but I know they're discounting things and stuff. So Kim, I am the admin and owner bookkeeper. I am the admin and the owner bookkeeper wants me to do SOPs for all workflows. Not possible to do due to lack of knowledge on workflows I don't do without owner's involvement. She works 7 days a week. Not sure how to help her. Introduce us. So, I actually just had somebody come into my program. The first program that I put everybody through is called the Nest. It's the sales skills systems and service. And somebody's operator, just like you, came in. Her boss paid for the program, so she does not need to be working 7 days a week. That's really hard. You can just email me, Justine@JustineLackey.com. That goes for any of you guys. I'm always happy to help. It really, my life's purpose is I help the world by helping people. I see we have 2 minutes out. Okay, we'll sort this out. Okay. Does having SOPs create risk for 1099 contractor status on our firm staff, especially in employee versus contractor states like California? Becky, that's not a question for me. That's a question for an HR specialist, or your attorney. When I worked with contractors, I worked with a white labeled bookkeeping service, which is an offshore company. It was not an issue for us. I think anytime we get into that 1099 thing with bookkeepers, it's very tricky. We did actually have a contractor handbook versus an employee handbook, but subcontractors have to follow your process, else you'll have chaos. So yeah. Will the slides be available? Yes, I believe the slides are available. If you have a program that, this is going to be our last question. If you have a program that auto generates SOP per client per period, how do you keep them all updated in live time? The SOP can be generated up to a year before you use them. You're going to have to revise them. I'm not sure. I think you're talking about somebody like if you you do annual bookkeeping, which I would never do anymore. So things change so much. How How do you recommend managing SOPs that are client specific? For example, should I have a company-wide SOP? Yeah. So you start with a base, Stephanie, right? So we have a core. We talked about enter, reconcile, revise, review. That's the base, and that happens all the time. But then Tony's ice cream is going to have a POS that's specific. That gets added into his client SOP. Somebody else sends on Amazon, that gets added into his SOP. So this is you have a base, a template, and then you build on that with the client specific data. Guys, that is 105. Wait, new questions added. Where would you say our starting point is if we're still been using sticky notes? It's been just me for 10 years now as one part-time bookkeeper, and we do bookkeeping, not tax. Girl, I would totally take pictures of them, upload them to ChatGPT, and tell it to create the SOP for you. I'm so all about harnessing that tech. I really would. And if you're not the only person who uses, I have Workbook. That was like my little reminder and my reminder to talk about ChatGPT during this presentation. So it's not just you. Guys, I am so excited. We are at 106. My time is done at 105. Thank you again. I go out there. The world is your oyster. Go help small business owners. And I hope this was helpful. Please leave me a review because I want to get better at what I do. Was this helpful? Drop a 1 in the chat. Yay. How many people do we have here anyway? I'm like so curious. Yay. Yay. Awesome. So happy you guys are here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So good. Yay. Oh, hey, Jane Addams. Hi. Yay. Hi, Marnie. Hi. Tanya. Amazing. Thanks. You're amazing too. Where is the survey? Oh, I have no idea. Oh, George, we have several SOP templates already built out in the templates library, and you can check them out here. There's a little link there. Yeah, if industry. Oh, yeah. George is the bomb, by the way. Hi, George. Yeah. Jill, that's a question. I think they have recordings available. Okay. Yay. All right, my friends. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you to my team at Financial Sense. And that's it. Let's go learn some more stuff. Yeah. Okay. Bye.